integrate a brand without killing the story? The brand just has one objective, but a storyteller has another. A conversation about how to reconcile two different objectives. For the same, I would like to call on stage Mr. Ajay Chako, co-founder and CEO of RA, Mr. Arjun Kalra, brand head, Fosters and Miller, AB, InBev, India, Mr. Cyrus Oshidar, MD and CCO, 101 India, and Ashish Shakya, co-founder of AIB. This session would be moderated by Ms. Ashwini Ganga, executive editor of AFAX. Can we please have you all on stage? Hello everyone. Thank you for being here and welcome to the last session of the day and of the convention. So our subject of discussion today is how to integrate a brand in online content. It could be web series or the kind of content that Ashish at AIB makes without completely killing the story. So I think we need to add one more thing over here without completely irritating the viewer as well, right? So you have your placards ready. So how many of you remember that little video, that scene in Chennai Express where Shah Rukh rattles off features of Nokia? The train scene. Okay, so 90% remember the scene. And how many of you were offended at some level? Yeah, you can just raise your hand if you don't have a placard. Yeah, you were irritated at some level, right? So we can add that little bit.
I think you should be offended that you were watching Chennai Express in the first place. That you spent your money on that, just...
Okay, so we'll...
It's a little sad. It's a little sad.
Yeah.
It's what you will come here together to condemn. Ye logo ko na acha content dena chahiye. This is basically every discussion at every conference ever. You know, people must pay for smarter content. And everybody goes and watches Chennai Express. And we're sitting around going, yaar.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically the topic. And before I ask each of you individual questions, I'd like you to take 5 minutes and talk to the audience and tell them what your take on this topic is. You know, how would you answer the question? How do you integrate a brand in content without killing the story and harassing the viewer? We can start with Cyrus. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Is this on? Firstly, it's a very broad question, and there's 100 different types of content, from a meme, a GIF, to a fully formed show, an ad, etc. So I think the process of integration also needs to be looked at as part of a marketing package. If you look at a piece of content in isolation and say, I want to integrate, you're just actually creating more of an interruption. I'm trying to be polite here. So I think you have to approach each task and each piece of content, you know, with whatever the aim of that piece of content is. If I have to show the inside of an engine for a car, I have to show the inside of an engine. Putting a Bollywood guy in the middle and singing and dancing on the top of it doesn't really do very much, because there's people who want to know about the inside of an engine. So I think part of it is to figure out a smart solution based on what you're supposed to be doing with the brand you're working with. The second part is to figure out where you can integrate, which is actually more like a sort of proctologist term, but where you can integrate or force fit your wonderful brand messages. And try and do it so that it's more content and less brand. I mean, most of us come from advertising, which is 30 seconds or 1 minute or whatever the hell it is, dedicated entirely to a product and its benefits. But the truth is that people don't really want to listen to product stories. I mean, I don't. We're much more interested in people stories. We're much more interested in stories. So finding the story, or whatever the story might be, and pushing that first and making sure that the integration doesn't trip it up. There's no point in Modi ji building a 17-lane highway if he's going to put speed breakers every 50 meters. So it really is case to case. I mean, it's easy to shit on integrations. Can I say shit? Yeah.
Sure.
It's easy to shit on integrations. Brands feel they're necessary, but I think it doesn't always have to be a conflict, and you can work together. Lastly, I find that, for example, since I have to plug what we do, 101india.com, 101india. I can keep saying it, it might be interruptive. But we have a property, for example, called Hip Hop Homeland. It's about underground hip hop. So not really about large men with trucks or naked women or whatever. It's about issues. But it's remarkably difficult, despite the fact that it's a youth passion, despite the fact that kids are interested, engaged, and follow it, maybe not the broad mass, but a certain section. It is incredibly difficult for a client to want to be part of it. And I think that's so stupid, not because we're producing it, but because this is real content, and this is what real kids are saying about their environment, about where they live, about what they think. And yet, because it's about issues, they say, "Nahi, ye kya bolega, wo kya bolega." So I think that kind of a mindset has to change very fast. And I think the world will very quickly be destroyed by marketing men and their idea of what content is, frankly.
Yeah, we have a marketer on the panel.
Sorry, by and large. Just
waiting for the marketing men to pick up the microphone now. Do you want to take it first?
Ajay, opening remarks?
Yeah, so the politically correct kind of answer is that, it should work for all three parties, right? The brand, the viewer, and the content creator or the media platform that's actually, kind of doing this. But the real reason why you actually are getting into brand integrations and, integrations with the story is because, you're actually increasingly seeing ad avoidance, right? So this is not something that is really new. The 30-second commercial will stay and it still does its rounds. But the smarter guys are people who are actually, trying to be part of a story, and not just as a one-off, but in a continuing sort of way. So, right from the Aston Martin days of Goldfinger to even now, it's not a new thing, right? So, but if you ask me personally what I feel, I think one should do a sort of a trade-off. The first and the foremost in this is the viewer. If I were to kind of prioritize, right? So I think the smart brand integrators and smart media guys or the content creators are those that actually make sure that their primary objective is to kind of make sure that the viewer who's targeted, whether it's in the long format web series or whether it's short stuff that Tyler is talking about, is not kind of disinterested in it because there's a brand or because there's something that is not really adding up in his head. And smart brand associations are those that actually have managed to keep that in mind first, right? So, very short point, if I were to prioritize between all three and not be politically correct, I think people who understand that the story is finally going to actually resonate with the viewer, and I should therefore be an integral part of the story and not necessarily the other way around, right? Every brand wants to tell a story, but not every story is something that every viewer wants to know. And there is always some sort of meeting point, but it's not necessary that it starts with saying, okay, all objectives can be met right at the beginning. So if the story works for you, and if the brand integration is something that actually kind of works along with it over a period of time, and when I'm saying this, over a period of time, because just one-offs don't work. Frankly, even if you do one show and integrate a brand in it, it'll be forgotten by the time the next thing comes in. So I believe, there needs to be a much longer term kind of view that somebody takes.
You need to keep spending money.
Sorry?
They need to keep spending money.
But I completely
agree.
Perfect time for Arjun to
I think
give his remark.
As a marketer, the first question you asked is, okay, let's spend 20% on digital this year instead of 100% on traditional. But where should we spend on digital? Yeah? Can we spend on getting some more likes on Facebook? Can we hit 2 million? Can we hit 3 million? Can we get 5 million impressions on Twitter? I think the comfort level with measurement is there because of the presence of traditional media. And at some point, I think you need to break that in terms of moving away from that and getting into a space which at times is not measurable. And I guess that's where brand integration comes in. We spoke about the fact that everyone loves a good story, right? And the starting point for the brand needs to be figure out a story which resonates with consumers, A. See if your brand tone of voice talks to that story. So I'll just give an example what we tried doing with Foster's. We partnered with TVF on Humorously Yours. And one of the passion points which we had identified on Foster's some time back was comedy. And humor, I would say. And we were struggling with putting out information on Facebook, getting some influencers to talk about the brand, partnering with comic shows. I think the challenge was how do we have a long-term relationship on video content. And that's where the opportunity came with TVF. very easy for us to go to TVF. They are the best in the business. They've been able to crack some great stories.
That's debatable.
One of the best in the business. Corrected. And I guess that's where the opportunity starts. And I guess the big point is you have to give in to the content creator. A lot of our relationships, I guess, with traditional agencies starts with, I am the client. This is my brief. This is the way I want it to be executed, period. I think when it comes to content creation, especially in the digital world, there needs to be a lot of leeway which you need to give to the content creator. So I guess being a smaller brand, you tend to focus more on the, if I could say, content piece, where you partner with them more actively. I wouldn't take names of big brands, but let's say I have a large 100 crore media budget and I've given it to one of my blogs to spend 5 crores on digital integration. He will do it his own way. He probably will not be very involved because he knows 95 crore of the money is still going to traditional. But when you know every single penny counts, that's when the story starts. And that's where you start having regular follow-ups. The process we follow, the TVF was, we kind of said that, let's have these telephonic calls. You come back and say, where can we fit in the brand in a real authentic manner? I don't want 100 mentions in your web series. I want quality. Right? So even if it means you pick up 20 impressions, if it means that you have a 10 episode series and only 8 episodes will capture my brand, I'm fine with it. I don't need to be present everywhere. I think that those are the hard calls you need to take, and you need to feed back to your senior management in the sense that, this is not a traditional media plan where I'm going to be there on every episode. I'm going to have 100 times posters glowing through the TV, through the web series. I'm not going to have a sanitized posters bottle. I think Gaurav spoke about it very well, that we tend to sanitize every shot. Food shot, beverage shot needs to look very nice, sexy, perfect. That's not the way consumers have it, right? And I guess that's the starting point. Pick up an authentic slice of life story, link it to your passion point, and give a lot of leeway to your content partner. Okay. I think that's where I'll summarize.
Opening remarks?
No, I'm just glad to hear somebody from the brand side say that. It's amazing because, like you said, there needs to be leeway, there needs to be, it's I think an ongoing process. Everybody's just sort of wandered into this over the past few years, right? So even the brand managers and the brand side is still grappling with it. We found in our experience that now, especially with the younger brands, especially with like a lot of the e-commerce, a lot of brands that are in that space, they're learning in the middle of like 100 con calls and like chains and chains of emails, passive aggressive, I think we should do this. Actually, we have just come back from the senior management and we feel very strongly that you should incorporate this, if you don't mind, like hundreds of emails and con calls later. Like I think we're both figuring each other out. And so that's why I think it's an exciting space to be, because like you said, like everybody else said here, the story first and foremost, and I obviously say this as a creator, should be in service of the audience and then the brand. And that's the only place you come from, a place of honesty. And I think in the long run, that's the way you'll end up breaking clutter. Because, and I think Kama and Tanmay were here yesterday, I think it came up briefly when they spoke about it as well. When now that money is being pumped in the ecosystem, it's a bright, new, shiny toy. It's not just something that people watch in the loo or on the train for like 5 minutes or in the auto, right? It's a thing that people are spending money on. Now that is happening, you obviously run the risk of, like you said, buying likes from here and then, telling your boss that, hey, these are the impressions we got, without really having made any sort of memorable impact on the landscape. So it runs that risk. So I feel just in terms of longevity, if you have to integrate, then to break clutter, you need to again put the story first. And how that will happen, well, that is again hundreds of con calls and conferences and all of that.
Yeah, can I just add, I mean, it's kind of common sense, which is the one thing we lack a lot, which is that, a joke is there to make you laugh, but if you have too many integrations in it, it ain't going to. So we all know what's funny, we all know what makes us cry, we all know what makes us laugh, and having come from advertising and television and seen both magical industries, content first, I mean, it's a label, it's, these are words we like to throw around, but I think it's very, very basic and it's common sense and it's fundamental. We know what moves us, but sometimes when it comes into a conference table, it suddenly dies a dismal death, because we spend all our brains destroying it.
Right.
It's like, here's a joke, but we'll completely destroy the punchline. Yeah. So, and everybody knows this. So I don't even know. I mean, I don't even think this is worthy of a panel discussion, to be honest. It's like analyzing a joke. You're like, why? I mean, is it funny or not? That's all you really care about, isn't it?
We just all wanted to come to Goregaon today, so.
Yeah, I know.
It's been a while.
It's lovely
Yeah,
here.
we wanted to
It's
see the
lovely.
metro.
Since I saw
metro
Mrinal Sai
construction
Gore
at work.
flyover, it's been a while.
No, thanks. Arjun, I'll come back to you, You've answered this in part, but there must be some kind of haggling even now that happens, though you said you're not a typical client who's going to say, I want my frame subliminally somewhere in the background or a sanitized bottle, but still, with the content guys, isn't there some kind of negotiation? Give us a sense of what goes down, before the brand is actually placed in the series.
So I think that conflict will always be there, right? And conflict management is part of the job. And that's where I think you need to pick up your battles. I'll give you an example. We were very keen on an on-premise shot. When I say an on-premise shot, we wanted to pick up a authentic pub or a bar setting. And at that point, we didn't have it part of the script.
Okay.
And we kind of very smartly, as Ashish would say, that, through a con call, passive email, follow-up call in the evening, ब्रांड को डाल सकते हैं कि बार में डालना है, ठीक है, वो साइनेज दिखाने का है. So, and I guess once you explain why are you doing that to the content creator, because they did not understand the fact that in our industry 90% of consumption actually happens off premise. When I say off premise, it happens at home or at a beer shop. It doesn't happen in a pub, it doesn't happen in a club for that matter. And the intent here was to premiumize the brand, make it a little more aspirational, stand out. And that's where the brand needs to push back. I think you need to explain the objective a little more clearly, state it out, and then see if you can kind of work it out. And we were able to. So we said we'll actually shoot in a real bar. I'm not saying I'm going to make a fuddy-duddy studio and ask you to shoot it there. We will block a bar. So we actually went to one of the bars in Bombay, in Powai. We got some time off, spoke to the owners and said that there will be a scene shot from one of the episodes, and close it out. So I think it's a bit of give and take. Give them that authenticity through pushing, ensuring that they get the kind of space which they want, at the same time talking to them and being a bit more clear about what's the brand's objective in that specific instance.
Okay, you have
Let me kind of do some kida on this one right now. So since all of us seem to be on the same page, right? Taking off from what Cyrus was saying, I think there is a little bit of a hackneyedness that has come into even the brand integration space.
Yes.
I'll tell you why I'm saying this. There was a report recently which said that 85% of all the web series, and I'm just talking about long format fiction right now, or a little bit of what you see in the digital space as long format content right now, right, was around comedy. And there were like 8 subgenres of comedy: buddy comedy, slice of life comedy, black comedy, X comedy, Y comedy, right? So now what has happened is, when people talk brand integration, they say, oh, मेरे को वो slice of life वाला comedy चाहिए. Okay, frankly, I mean, if you start there, you're already being, without realizing that, that you're partly killing the plot, you're really doing it, right? So when we were doing something as dark as Aisha, we had a tough time to begin with. We said, oh, ये तो dark sci-fi thriller है. ये नहीं चलता है यहाँ पे. We सिर्फ buddy comedy, slice of life comedy, stand-up comedy, all kinds of comedy works, right? So it was very brave on the part of Gillette and Palo Alto Networks and whatever, Dell, to have taken this, and it worked for whatever reason. So therefore, if you see, there are 2 or 3, that 15% of whatever other shows consists of about 3 or 4, 5 shows that kind of broke the mold, right? So when we talk about brand integration and storytelling, I think people also need to understand that the next frontier of storytelling does not necessarily come by looking at the rearview mirror and driving, right? So that's, I think, probably the point that one can debate if you were to really agree on everything else. That do people really take enough risks, and do people take enough, kind of sort of long views about really multiple genres of content, multiple types of things that need to kind of be explored, and not just the typical stuff that seem to have worked. Why is brand integration working? Oh, because TVF did pictures and Kingfisher did pictures, whatever. So there is like, oh, okay, I need to now do buddy comedy. That's what works. The skip button is the reason you are actually doing branded content, right? Because if you can skip an ad, and that's what is really different between TV and digital, then brand integration is not like an optional thing to do, and it's not like saying, oh, मैं digital करूँगा, उसमें थोड़ा सा brand integration डाल दूँगा. It needs to be there as part of everybody's plan, because there is every likelihood that most of your ads are going to be skipped, right?
Okay.
and
Yeah. No, please.
Kida enough? Yeah, it's complete. I mean, this is common sense again, and it's so fundamentally basic. We run into the same thing. You know, it's an adventure sport, but why is he doing it? Is he doing it because he wants to do it, or because his uncle did it once and failed, and therefore he has to? Oh no, he's doing it because he has to make a world record. I mean, who gives a shit, honestly? He's doing it. You're clearly conveying that this is an action sport. You're clearly conveying a certain tone, manner, action, event, blah blah blah. But still, we go into 300 questions: why, what, when, how. So that has to be overcome, because content has to be driven by content first, because we have a skip button. The other thing people forget is the simple power of association. I was outside and I think there was Gaurav Ghera or someone there, and there were like 16 people with their selfie buttons going thud, 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 thud. Now that's lovely, but that is the power of association. You want to associate with cool things, so just associate with them, continue associating with them, and you will be seen as a cool guy. That's the reason you post photos with celebrities on your Facebook page anyway. So why can't we say that simple sponsorship model? Why can't we do more of that? Why can't we just say, hey, this is a cool thing, hip hop homeland or whatever. I think I'd like to be part of a cool thing, but you know, can we make it a little less cool? I mean, when I was in MTV, I used to get all these, you know, I want MTV style, and then as soon as I do it, they say, ye bahut zyada MTV style hai yaar. So I'm like, but this is MTV. So you know, it gets into that space, and it's extremely irritating. And a lot of these things are really common sense, and I don't know why we spend hours of boardroom time discussing things, and you know, we're calling it content, and you know, needing 3 labels. It's really, really irritating, because this is basic human emotion. Does it make you laugh? Does it make you cry? Do you want to see more of it? Does your brand fit? Is it a nice, a happy fit? Are people looking at your brand and feeling good about your brand? Or are they, you know, watching it destroy the piece of content? I mean, as Ajay said, we're in this space because we believe that ads are interruptive. We know that kids have an automatic bullshit detector that's like, this is wrong, I'm not buying this crap, but still, we will have a committee meeting.
Right. Ashish, what about you? You know, when you're making a sketch, is that, yeah, it's
Right.
called a sketch, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
As long as you don't call it skit, it's nice.
yeah, sketch. So, is there any haggling at all? I mean, how does it work typically with your, with the brands that want to integrate in your kind of content? This is web series, but what about your kind of content?
Again, actually, just I'd like to point out something from this year. Earlier, when all of us started integrating, it was a very easy slip in wherever, and then we used to acknowledge it, like with Snapdeal, which did wonders for the brand. Like, it got to a point where our fans would look out for the Snapdeal integration, because suddenly in the middle of like an honest wedding, we would just be like, here's an integration, oh wow, this is so subtle, and you would address it and do all that meta shit. And it was fun and easy, but then everybody's doing that now. So again, so now we're trying to do something more narrative based again, even if it's non-fiction short format. So we did something for the Allo Messenger by Google, the sketch called Flirting League, and that's where we try to sort of make it a story with instead of a character using Allo at a restaurant, which has nothing to do with the app or messaging. We try to build a story around it, which we did find a conflict with, because it's messaging, it's flirting, it's young people, it's college, it's stuff that everybody does, it's relatable, it's not coming from a dishonest place. All the jokes work within that format without us having to really hard sell a product that's not part of that natural college flirting environment. And it did really well, because people, from what the feedbacking that we did, people were really hooked onto the characters. It's become a catchphrase now. Malika Dua's character and Tanmay's character, from that, it's become a catchphrase now. So now, so even within our integrations, we're trying and experimenting in doing this wherever we can. We did something with Ola again, where we did the end of the year song. Don't drink and drive is a message that we sort of would push anyway. It's a good message. It's a message we believe in. Very honestly, and the year end is a good format again, and Ola seem to fit there, right? So again, there you sort of do a fun story, to present it in a way that is not just one product shot, one guy using it and done, and calling it out in a meta manner is not something we can rely on always. So again, and with brands that come to us now, they've seen us do that whole meta stuff, they've seen us do this, they've seen us do exclusive branded pieces for the brand's channel, so they've seen us do all sorts of work. They know more or less what our tone is, so that to and fro with us is It'll go on, but it's a little lesser because people know what they're expecting and people know how well we can accommodate them in the non-fiction format. Now moving forward, we're doing fiction, a lot of fiction coming up in this year and the next, which is where it'll be interesting, because, you know, now we are also getting to that space where brands will come up to us and be like, अब इस story में fit करके दिखाओ.
मिलते हैं इसके बाद.
Sorry?
इसके बाद आपसे मिलते हैं.
हाँ, मिलते हैं, अभी मिलते हैं.
Wonderful. Great. So my biggest takeaway is that branding has become very unapologetic, at least in the online video space. And we have just enough time for our audience reaction. The question is, while watching a web series or while watching online content, and when you spot a brand integration, does it offend you the way the movie brand integration does? Red, no.
Red means it doesn't offend you, by the way,
Yeah.
just in case
While
you're
watching
confused.
a web series, when you spot a brand integration, does it offend you as a viewer? Green is yes.
Yes, it offends you.
So it still offends something. Some are holding it.
That means it doesn't offend you.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it is not. They're not getting offended, right? But this is not surprising. People are...
It means they love it.
I have a feeling most people are from agencies and, you know, whatever. So therefore, you never know. Yeah, they will love it.
They want more. Great. Thank you. Thank you. We're out of questions and time.
Oh, that was good. Quick. Thank you. You can go back home.
Well, this is a very cool token of appreciation. It's not like the usual ones. I hope you guys like this one. Well, thank you once again, panelists, for coming out here. Thank you so much. Well, this almost brings us to the end of the convention. For the final closing remarks and vote of thanks, may I please once again have on stage Mr. Shrikant Khandekar. Can we please have you on stage, sir?
Okay, guys, thank you very much for having been here. 2 days of, I enjoyed it very much. I hope you did too. And this to promise that we'll meet again in Bombay next year on the 11th and 12th of January for something I think bigger and I hope more international. We'll see you then again. Bye.